Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this orientation in preparation for the 11th Annual Debbie's Dream Foundation Curing Stomach Cancer's Advocacy Day. I am Camille Bonta, and I am the Policy and Advocacy Consultant for Debbie's Dream Foundation, and I've served in this role since DDF's inaugural Lobby Day in 2013. Next slide, please. Advocacy Day is the signature advocacy event for Debbie's Dream Foundation, and we thank you for your commitment to furthering our goal of increasing funding for stomach cancer research that can lead to new treatments, better diagnostic tools, and interventions to prevent stomach cancer. Together, we have made so much progress towards securing federal funding for this historically under-researched cancer. We must continue to build on this progress, and is why we are going to Capitol Hill on March 7th for the first time together in person since 2020. Next slide, please. During today's orientation, we're going to talk about our 2023 advocacy goals, what you should expect when you go to Capitol Hill for meetings with lawmakers and their staff, and how to prepare. We're also going to go through a few logistics and take questions at the end. Please write any questions that you may have in the chat at any time during this presentation. Next slide, please. So you are the voice of stomach cancer, and when you and your fellow advocates go to Capitol Hill on March 7th, you will be increasing awareness for stomach cancer. You will also be educating members of Congress and their staff about the journey of a stomach cancer diagnosis, whether it's your perspective as a patient, as a caregiver, or in whatever capacity you have experienced stomach cancer. And importantly, we're going to ask for more research funding that can lead to better diagnostic tools and treatments that will end stomach cancer as we know it today. Next slide. You're going to be on Capitol Hill as lawmakers are deciding what appropriations requests they're going to put their names behind this year. Congressional offices can get hundreds of appropriations requests every year. Your job is to tell your story and make a compelling case for why your lawmakers should support stomach cancer research funding efforts. You know, we just can't take for granted the support of a lawmaker from one year to the next. And there are a number of new lawmakers following last year's election. This is why your participation in this Advocacy Day is so important. We need your voice and your participation to reach these lawmakers. Next slide. Now, as I mentioned, in addition to increasing awareness and educating congressional offices about stomach cancer, we're going to be asking for more research funding. And our requests are very specific. We're going to ask that stomach cancer remain in the Department of Defense's peer-reviewed cancer research program. And we're going to ask them to sign a letter affirming that support. We're also going to ask for nearly $10 billion in federal funding for the National Cancer Institute. Now, I know that this is a big number, but it's what's needed to keep making important cancer research progress and to make sure that the NCI can dedicate the resources needed to develop precision approaches for the prevention, screening, detection, surveillance, and treatment of stomach cancer. Today's orientation is just the first part and a small part of the preparation for your congressional meetings. In DC, there will be another training during which you'll be given talking points and advice on how to approach your meetings. We promise that all, even our first-time advocates, will have all the education and resources needed for successful meetings on Capitol Hill. Next slide. It's now my pleasure to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Megan Gordon-Don with MGD Strategies, who will give you the rundown on what you need to know to prepare for your meetings with your lawmakers. Megan's been helping to train and prepare DD advocates for the past several years. She is an expert in grassroots advocacy and has decades of experience in working with the cancer community. And I must admit, her slides are far more interesting than mine. So Megan, take it away. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Camille. So this is really exciting. We are going to be back in person, which we haven't been able to do since 2019. So this is huge that we get this opportunity to be on the Hill. And I know for some of you, you haven't been on the Hill in person for a while, so you may not be sure what to expect. And for a lot of you, this may be the first time that you have ever spoken to a member of Congress in person. So this is really exciting, but I know some of you may be feeling a little bit nervous about what you might expect and how this all works. And I want to assure you that this is a normal part of the process. And our members of Congress, even though they make the laws that govern our country, they truly are regular people. They may have, the day that you're meeting with them, their sink may have broken in their kitchen. They may be thinking about what they need to plan for dinner and worrying about, do they need to go to the grocery store? Or someone that they love or even themselves could have just gotten a diagnosis for some sort of disease and they're grappling with that. They literally have all the same issues and concerns that we all do. And so think of them as you are talking to someone that you know or someone that you're just meeting, and you're trying to explain what stomach cancer is. And you are really the expert on stomach cancer, so you can share that perspective with them. We're going to give you 3 crucial tools for your meetings. First of all, you're going to be trained in what to ask. So we're not going to do that today, although Camille gave you a little bit of a preview. But we're going to spend time with you before you go to the Hill and really go into the ask in detail. And so you will be fully trained on the ask. And even if you find yourself after the training thinking, oh, I can't remember what that was, we're going to give you talking points and other materials that have the ask on it, so you can refer to that during your meetings. So do not worry about the ask. As I said, you are the expert on your story, your experience, and the urgency of this disease. And that is the primary thing that you are going to be sharing during these meetings, because it helps educate our policymakers and their staff about this disease. And some members of Congress may have zero experience with stomach cancer. And so they really need to understand from your perspective what's important. And finally, and one of the most important, you are a constituent. So even if you didn't vote for the members of Congress that you are meeting with, you had the opportunity to vote for them, and you will have the opportunity to vote for them. And that makes you very important to them. They want to know what you care about. So advocacy can be so tremendously important. When you think about if one person has one idea for something that needs to happen, they may be talking and they may be talking to their members of Congress, but that's one person. What happens when we duplicate our efforts and we have a whole group going to the Hill on the same day with the same message to our members of Congress, our message gets amplified and takes on even greater importance. We know that advocacy, advocacy leads to success. Our advocacy efforts have already resulted in so much more research funding for stomach cancer. So through our efforts, stomach cancer has been included in the Department of Defense peer-reviewed cancer research program every year since 2015. So that means that there have been 50 new awards for stomach cancer research, totaling over $30 million because of our advocacy efforts. That's huge. That amount of research funding would not have been there if it hadn't been for DDF advocates. Through our advocacy efforts, we also got the National Cancer Institute to set up a new program on the origins of gastroesophageal cancer. And that resulted in 6 R01 awards. And R01 awards are the really big ones that set up research laboratories and employ a lot of people and get a lot of the important foundational research done. So we got an additional $4 million of research funding through those. Again, wouldn't have happened without advocacy. And most recently, our advocacy efforts led to a National Cancer Institute gastroesophageal working group. And that working group has put out a report about what next steps NCI needs to focus on gastroesophageal cancer research. that is guaranteed to lead to new research awards and new research funding that we wouldn't have received otherwise. So your coming to the Hill is just the next step in these advocacy efforts, and we're going to continue to build. So let's talk about who we're going to talk to. So we're not going to talk to the president. We're not going to talk to the Supreme Court. We're going to focus our efforts on the legislative branch, which is Congress. And Congress has two chambers. There's the Senate and the House. So just a quick civics refresher. It may have been a while for some of you. So everyone, no matter where you live, you have two senators and you have one representative. Your senators are elected every 6 years, and they represent the entire state. It doesn't matter if you're a huge state or a little state, you still get two senators. Your representatives are elected every other year, and each representative represents an average of 700,000 constituents. So think about that for a second. That's, that's your congressional district, and there are approximately 700,000 people who are in each congressional district, and your representative wants to represent that district as best as they can. And you have a leg up on all those other people because you are coming to Washington, D.C., and you are speaking to your representatives and your senators. So it's really hard for senators and representatives to know what their constituents want unless they're asked. And asking in person carries a huge weight. They know that you have made that extra effort to come to DC, to be there in person, and to make those requests. So that's hats off to you for making that commitment to do this because it's really important. So we're going to have all kinds of meetings on the Hill, and we'll talk about those in a second. But you'll notice when you get your schedule, sometimes you'll have a meeting with a senator or a representative, the elected official themselves, and sometimes you'll have a meeting with staff. I don't want anyone for 1 second to think that the staff meetings are less important. The staff are actually critical to how things get done on the Hill. And if you can convince a staff person that your issue is important and that their bosses, the senators and representatives, should sign on to our letters, then that is a huge step towards meeting our goals. So, as I said, we're going to give you a lot of tools and resources, including a whole training dedicated to how we make the ask and how to set up your meeting. But one thing that's available for you today is you can go to this website on Debbie's Dreams website, and if you go to 2023 Advocacy Day, you will see a place where you can look at a cheat sheet for your meeting. You can look at the legislative ask. There are a whole bunch of materials on there. So you can get a preview of what we're talking about. We will also take care of providing you with these resources when you get to DC as well. So as we talked about, your most important tool is your story, because your story shows that you're a constituent, you're one of those people who can vote for your elected officials, even if you didn't. And if you didn't, there's no reason to share that during your congressional meetings. You have an opportunity to share your opinion of your legislators during elections. Right now, they're the people who represent you. So you are a constituent, and you are the face of this issue. You are showing them how stomach cancer has impacted their constituents. So by sharing your personal story, you are really connecting to the people that you're meeting with and making this a very personal issue. And that's really important for how we convince lawmakers to do what we want. You're the expert on your story. I know sometimes it's intimidating to sit across from elected officials or their staff, but as I said, they're normal people, and also they haven't experienced, most likely, stomach cancer the way that you have. And so you know more about this issue than they do. And you certainly know more about how it's impacted you. So sharing that is really impactful. So meetings will look like a lot of different things. So you might meet in a house office building with a representative. So that's what this meeting is showing. Or you might meet, it might be a little less formal and sitting around, and the representative is sitting on the desk or leaning against the wall. You might meet in a Senate office, and the senator is the one sitting at the head of the table. And you notice how those offices are a little bit bigger, a little bit fancier than the House offices. You might meet with staff. You could meet in the office lobby. So this is an actual senator's lobby right when you walk into his office, and you might meet in there instead of meeting in a conference room. You could meet in the hallway. And that is very frequently what happens in these meetings. We meet in the hallway and stand off to the side, and that absolutely happens. And none of these meetings, no matter where you meet, no matter who you are meeting with, all of them are equally important. You might have moments of real levity in your meetings, and it's absolutely okay to laugh and to tell jokes as long as they are tasteful jokes. And you might have moments of real emotion. And I want everyone to know that having those moments of real emotion, 100% okay. These are real stories. They are your life. It is what has happened to you and how this issue has impacted you. We are not robots going to the hill. We are real people, and we're sharing our experiences with other real people. And so don't be afraid to share the emotion. Don't be worried that you think you might tear up or even start sobbing. That's okay. That is part of sharing real experiences. And that is part of how we communicate the urgency of this disease. So a couple of key tips for your meetings, just to be thinking about. First, remember that members of Congress really are just like us, with the caveat that they work for you. So these are people who are supposed to be representing you. So it is absolutely imperative that you share how they best can do that and share what you want them to do. You're the expert in your story and why stomach cancer research matters. So thinking about that connection to not just being able to tell your story about how this disease has impacted you, but also why that shows that we need more research. Staying on message is the way to win. So I know that everyone has probably lots of issues that you might like Congress to get involved in. And that's absolutely wonderful. And I encourage you to reach out to your members of Congress on any issue that you want their input in, their involvement in. But for the purposes of our Hill Day, we're going to be carrying one message, and that's the DDF stomach cancer message. So we need everyone to be singing from the same song sheet so that we can meet our goals and get as many representatives and senators as possible on those letters. And remember, if you haven't heard no yet, the answer still can be yes. So we're going to keep working until we get to a yes. So you might be wondering what you should pack for this trip. First, I would absolutely say you want comfortable shoes. The floors, the hallways in Congress are marble. It is not the time to wear your stiletto shoes, ladies, or to be wearing uncomfortable dress shoes. You need to be wearing shoes that you can walk a lot in. And I say that as a person who loves heels, but you will kill your feet if you try to wear really high heels all day. You will need an umbrella. You will need layers and or a coat. And I encourage you to check the weather before you come, but then to also check it several times because it changes and it changes often here. So today it's almost 80 degrees. In 2 days, it's going to be snowing. So that is welcome to DC weather. And early March is notoriously changeable. You're going to want some small bag or purse so that you can keep your wallet, your license, a bottle of water, any of those types of things. You might want your business cards if you have business cards to share with the staff. I encourage you to bring a photo of the reason that you are doing that, whether doing this Hill Day, whether it's a photo of you with loved ones or on your own doing something you love, or a photo of someone who's important to you who experienced this disease. Showing that photo really helps make that connection. And so that's a good thing to bring. Because you're, and most of the time, it's going to be sitting across from somebody, and there may be some distance. If you have a larger size photo, at least a 5x7 or an 8x10, where you can really see the person that you're talking about, that can be helpful. And the other thing we didn't talk about is dress. So usually the Hill is kind of business. Think about what you would wear to church. You don't have to wear a suit. Last few times I've been up, I haven't seen a lot of people wearing ties, but people still do wear ties. But it's a time to be respectful. So, this is not a jeans and t-shirt kind of event. But at the same time, it's, you don't have to pull out the cocktail dress or the tie if that's not something that you want. So some next steps. First, find your photo that you want to bring, if you want to bring that. Practice your story. And you want to have several different versions of it. You want to have kind of a longer, maybe a minute and a half version and a 20-second version. So practice telling it to a friend or in the mirror, write it down if that helps you. But think about the most impactful way that you can share your experience. And check out our resource page. And that link, I believe, is going to be sent out to you as well if it hasn't already. And finally, get excited to make a difference because this is huge. We are back in person and we are going to go storm the Hill and we are going to deliver our message and we're going to get results. And that is really due to all of you. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Camille.
Great. Thank you so much, Megan. That was really great and very informative. I just want to remind everyone that if you have questions, to put them in the chat. If you could go to the next slide, Megan. I just want to show everyone, I know you're getting lots of emails from DDF staff that include all the important things you need to know about the hotel, in your flight, in the agenda. But I just want to highlight here that our advocacy day begins on Monday, March 6th. All events on the 6th are going to take place at the Washington Plaza Hotel in DC. Now, we talked about that added training, the in-depth training that you're going to have on the ground. And as you can see here, that training is going to start at 3:45 on Monday. So we're going to have a training for an hour and 15 minutes, and then you're going to have some time. You're going to have this break about an hour and a half before dinner, and you can use that time to sit down with other individuals that you are going to be going on your Hill meetings with to talk about how you want to structure your meeting, who's going to kick it off, who's the constituent in that meeting, and practice. So you're going to have time, because I know that some of you may know everyone in your group or people who are coming from your state, and then there are others who will not know the other people from their state, and you'll need some time to get to know one another. If you go to the next slide, Megan. So Tuesday is our day on the Hill. This is when all the meetings are going to happen. And there is going to be a bus that is going to take you all to Capitol Hill, and we're going to have to all be ready just before 8 o'clock, ready to board those buses and get to Capitol Hill. And when your meetings are over, there's going to be buses that are going to bring you back to the hotel, and they're going to be running starting at 1 o'clock periodically. And you'll have more information when you get there about the transportation. When you get there, you're also going to get your meeting schedules, which will tell you who you're meeting with and what time. You're also going to get some added materials. You are going to get folders with information in it. You're going to get a piece that you're going to leave behind in your meetings. And when we send out the recording of this training, we're also going to share with you the resource center, which is now online on the DDF website, where you can go to get all of the materials that are going to be in your folders if you want to take a look at that information before you leave for Washington, D.C., so you can begin to prepare. And in fact, if you go to that website now and you go to the top menu bar, you're going to see in one of the pull downs the 2023 Advocacy Day Resource Center, but a link for that will be forthcoming. And then on Wednesday, next slide, our advocacy portion of the week will be over, and there'll be a day with presentations from various individuals and more time to spend with your fellow advocates. I think there's going to be some mindfulness sessions and presentations, as you can see here from the NIH. So it's shaping up to be looks like a really fantastic day. And I think that about wraps it up. Again, we're happy to take any questions. Don't be shy. You can type them in the chat box, and you can find that there on your control panel. We'll just give it a couple minutes here in case anyone's typing anything into the chat. But I want to thank everyone again for taking time to join this training. Again, we'll be sending out a recording. And of course, if you have any questions between now and when you leave for DC, please just reach out to Candy or any of the DDF staff, and they will forward those questions on to me, and we will get you an answer. Okay, I don't see any questions coming through the chat, so we are going to end the presentation. And
can you hear me? There are some questions. I'm not sure why you can't see them, but I will read them out for you. Someone, Neem asks, has security been ramped up at various office locations since the January 6th events?
So what I would say there is that it might take a little bit longer to get through security. So we're going to make sure that, and this is why we're saying we all got to be ready to board those buses and get to the Hill in order to give yourself plenty of time to get through security. It's a little like airport security screening, except you may not need to take your shoes off. It just depends, right? So, the process definitely goes faster when you take everything out of your pockets and take off your jacket and do everything that the Capitol Hill police officers ask you to do. And we'll be going over more of that when we have our training on Monday. But basically, you should treat it as if you're going through airport screening, except you can take a bottle of water, right? You don't have to adhere to the whatever 4-ounce rule, except if you're going into the Capitol building. And again, we'll be talking about some of that. So I wouldn't expect you to experience anything different than what you've experienced previously, except that it might just take a little bit longer.
Thank you. The next question is by Lori. She wants to know, will we get a copy of the PRCRP letter so that we can be familiar with it at a high level before asking the staff or the legislator to sign it?
Yeah, great question. Again, all of that information is on the DDF Advocacy 2023 Advocacy Resource Center. So draft copies of those letters are currently posted, so you can read through them. And we're hoping to have them finalized by the 7th and have those updated letters posted there. When you go on that resource center, what you're going to see is there a link for congressional staff, and that you're going to have for the lack of a better word, a brochure with lots of information in it that you're going to give to lawmakers and congressional staff. And on that brochure is going to be a QR code. And staff can scan that QR code, and it's going to take them to all of that information. But what you're going to learn when we have our training on the 6th is that a really important component to a successful lobby day is the follow-up. So you're not just going to go to Capitol Hill, go home, and call it a day. You're going to need to follow up, because you may have been one of 20 or 30 meetings that staffer, that member of Congress, will have had on that day. And so you're going to have to follow up. And when you follow up, you can send them links for information. You can attach documents for them and make sure that they have everything at their fingertips. So the short answer is everything is posted, and you can find it at the Resource Center. You'll be getting hard copy materials when you get to DC, and we'll be giving information to Hill staff that will direct them to where they can get even more information.
Okay, the next question is, Lori also asked, I realize the presentation is being recorded, but will the PowerPoint slide deck be available separately after this meeting?
We can make that available to anyone who needs it, so they can refer back to it for purposes of preparation. We can post it on the Resource Center.
Okay, next question is by Kristen. She wanted to know, where can she find the link for the resources? I can answer that. That's under, when you go to debbiesdream.org, under Take Action, you'll see the 2023 Advocacy Resource Center materials as a link under Take Action on our main page. The next question is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can, I was going to try to post that in the chat. I'm not sure yeah, I can. I'm going to post that and see if I can send it to everyone. It doesn't look like I can. So actually, Brittany, if you could, there we go. Thank you. There's the link. It's in the chat.
Also, we have more questions. So we have another question from Neem. She wants to know, when will we know the representatives with whom we'll be meeting?
Yeah, so you're going to get your schedule when you get to DC. But it is a safe bet that you are going to be meeting with both of your senators and your representative. And then you may be meeting with other representatives as well. So if you have a question about who your senators are, or you want to learn more about them, or you have a question about who your representative is, you can go to senate.gov and you can go to house.gov. And when you go to house.gov, there's a place at the top of the page where you can put in your zip code. And when you put your zip code in, it will tell you who your representative is. It may ask for your home address as well. if there are two representatives who represent a particular zip code. So if you want to do some background research on members before you come to Washington, my recommendation is your two senators and your representative that you will find with your zip code.
A couple more questions. Someone wants to know, are masks required during the meetings?
That's a good question. Megan, have you been hearing anything?
No, I think there are, as far as I know, 2 or 3 members of Congress who are encouraging masks. And part of that is because the members themselves have diagnosis that put them at risk. But for the most part, and if there is a mask requirement or encouragement, they will provide the masks in the offices.
Perfect, thank you. Another question by Lucinda wants to know, how many of us are in meeting groups? I think that's her question.
So I can't answer that question off the top of my head, right? So it is possible that there are going to be some states where there is only one advocate from that state. Where that is happening, we are going to group you in terms of training with other states where there may be only 1 or 2 advocates, just so you can prepare together. But it is possible that you won't be traveling in a group if you are the only person from a state. Otherwise, if there are other people from your state, you will be moving together throughout the day as a group. For some states where there are a large number of advocates coming from that state, we may split that group into 2, and you guys will have different meetings. So in a case like that, maybe one group will meet with one senator and the other group will meet with the other senator. So we are working on that on a state-by-state basis.
Thank you. And then we have Yolanda, who says, I haven't done this before, so I'm wondering if the lawmakers and or staffers have our meetings on their calendars and have agreed to meet with us, or do we have to hope that they are available and willing to meet with us?
That is such a good question. We are scheduling these meetings, so they are expecting you. The meeting is on their calendar, and they are being given information in advance. So they are getting our fact sheet. So they're going to have a little bit of a heads up on what you're coming to talk about. But none of these meetings are cold calls. All of them have been scheduled, and there is a specific designated time for you to be in that office meeting with the congressional staffer or the member of Congress.
And I think that is it for questions, so thank you. Oh wait, one more came in, sorry about that. Are the meetings ever canceled, is what Lisette wants to know.
Yeah, so that's also a really good question. So our scheduler, Erica, will be on the ground with us in Washington, and it never fails that a couple things will be happening. She may get requests from congressional offices to move a meeting, and we will work very quickly to let you know about any changes to a meeting. The other thing that can happen, unfortunately, is sometimes it will be Monday and we still won't have a meeting with a certain office scheduled, and we will at that point still be working to schedule it. So there will be adjustments to some of your schedules, and we will go over that when we have our training on Monday, but we will be asking you to check your text periodically throughout the day to make sure there haven't been any changes to your schedules. And we'll work with DDS staff to make sure that we have a list of everyone's cell phone numbers for that day so we can reach you quickly.
Okay, thank you. So Laura wants to know, where do we go when we're not in a meeting?
That's also a really great question.
You had a second
So
question.
there are a lot there are cafeterias, there are little cafes, there are some seating areas, particularly, in one of the Senate buildings, kind of in the entryway, where you can grab a seat, you can get a bite to eat, get something to drink. And there's very good signage throughout the House and the Senate buildings. And of course, you can always ask somebody that has a badge on, or a Capitol Hill police officer, and they will point you in the right direction. But there are places where you can go and sit and wait in between your meetings. Our strong recommendation is going to be, if you don't need to, don't leave the building and come back unless you have to walk from the House side to the Senate side or vice versa. Because you don't want to have to go through the security process again. You just want to kind of get in the building and stay in the building. And there are plenty of places where you can go and you can take a break.
Thank you. She also wanted to know, how many meetings will we attend during the day?
Everyone is going to have at least 3 meetings, but we are trying to give groups more than 3 meetings. So we're doing that on a very targeted basis. So plan on at least 3 meetings, and those meetings could occur anytime between 9 and 5. And again, you'll get your schedules when you get into DC, but we will make sure that every group has at least 3 meetings.
Perfect. Suzette says, I am military. I currently live in Virginia, and I was diagnosed in Iowa. I was treated in Minnesota, and I grew up in Ohio. And I am now a registered voter in Florida. I am flexible to go where you assign me.
Great. I really do appreciate that. If you could send that to Candy or Brittany, that would be really helpful to have in writing. Thank you.
Yes. We had, Lucinda says, if we are the only advocate in our state, does someone else join us to those meetings, such as getting around the buildings, etc.?
So what we're going to do on Monday is we are going to give everyone the information, the tools, and the resources to have a successful meeting, regardless of whether you're in a group or you are by yourself. We have a lot of meetings. I think we have a lot of new advocates. And if there are opportunities to partner somebody more experienced with somebody who isn't, we will do that. If there's an opportunity for Megan or I to accompany someone to their first meeting, we will try to do that. But we are going to make you comfortable with going to the Hill and navigating the Hill. And I can promise you there are going to be plenty of people up on the Hill that can point you in the right direction if you get turned around. And we are all going up to Capitol Hill together because we're going to do photos on the steps of the Capitol. And I will be there. And if you have a question of which side is the Senate, which side is the House, which building am I going to first, we will point you in the right direction. And then once you're inside the building, it's actually pretty easy to navigate. And again, there are going to be plenty of friendly people who are willing to point you in the right direction.
Thank you, Camille. It looks like that concludes our questions. Thank you.
Those were excellent questions. Thank you so much because I'm sure others have the same questions. So thank you for those who asked them. And again, if you have any questions, if you think of something between now and when you leave for DC, email Candy or Brittany, and they will pass that question on to me, and we will get you an answer. Until then, good luck with your preparation, and look forward to seeing you all very soon.